How would you react if you were labeled a traitor in your own country? Not criticized, not debated, but publicly branded with a word that carries the weight of history. In Bangladesh, some words are not political, they are personal. They come from the country's founding trauma and they do not fade with time.
এটা তো দিতেই হবে। এখন মেধা, এই যে মেধা আর কোটা নিয়ে, তো কোটা আর মেধা তো এক জিনিস না। এইখানে দ্বন্দ্বটা সৃষ্টি করে, এটা একটা ট্যাকটিক্স। তার মানে কি মুক্তিযোদ্ধার সন্তান নাতিপুতিরা কেউ মেধাবী না, যত রাজাকারের বাচ্চারা নাতিপুতি হলো মেধাবী, তাই না? কিন্তু এটা ভুলে গেলে চলবে না যে যাদেরকে মেধাবী না বলছে তাদের হাতে কিন্তু ওরা পরাজিত। যুদ্ধে কিন্তু মুক্তিযোদ্ধারাই জয়ী হয়েছিল, রাজাকাররা জয়ী হয় নাই। তারা পাকিস্তানিদের পদলেহন করেও পরাজিত হয়েছিল। এই কথাটা তো মনে রাখা উচিত যে তারা তো পরাজিত হয়েছিল। তাদের মেধাটা কোথায়? তাদের মেধাটা কোথায়? সেটা আমার প্রশ্ন।
In Bangladesh, the word Razakar refers to those who collaborated with the Pakistani army during the 1971 Liberation War. It's synonymous with betrayal, violence, and with national shame. The word Razakar literally means volunteer, but over decades in Bangladesh, it has become the ultimate slur, a label tied to the paramilitaries who collaborated with the Pakistan army during the 1971 war. To this day, the term is a flashpoint, a direct link to the country's most painful chapter. It is not used lightly. When the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, used the word in July 2024, it did not stay inside a room. It detonated, surging across news channels and campuses. For a generation of young Bangladeshis, it felt like it branded them as the enemy in their own land. It effectively erased their right as citizens with grievances and associated them with a label of treason. The chants were not random, they were a reclamation. By shouting the slur back, the students were mocking the label, refusing to be silenced by history. For a generation that had grown up cautious, this was new. It was the end of fear. What followed moved faster than anyone expected. Demonstrations that began on university campuses spilled to the heart of the capital. Classes were suspended, the country halted. Crowds grew larger by the day. What started as a protest over the quota system had now turned into a confrontation. After 15 years in power, the end came abruptly. Sheikh Hasina left the country. No final address, no farewell. Bangladesh woke up to a political vacuum. But this did not happen overnight. We have to look past the protests. What unfolded in July was not sudden. It was the collision of growth without voice, prosperity without participation, and stability without accountability. When institutions weaken slowly, collapse feels sudden, but it isn't. For a decade, Bangladesh was the rising tiger of Asia. The garment industry surged, infrastructure reshaped the landscape. International banks praised the progress. On the surface, the country was moving steadily forward. But progress came with a trade-off. The economy grew, political competition narrowed, opposition faded, elections were increasingly contested, voter confidence declined, stability existed, but accountability faded. As growth accelerated, power consolidated. Sheikh Hasina's government increasingly framed stability as patriotism and dissent as disruption.
There's a very thin line between what we call stability, which is artificially constructed, and the peace of the grave. So, where everybody is falling in line under an enforced state diktat. So I think that Bangladesh was falling in the latter category, because if you remember the last elections, which was a sham election in 2024, they didn't even allow any opposition. It had already been transformed virtually into a one-party dictatorship, and a ruthless one at that. And I think it went against the grain of the Bangladeshi people.
The growth was real, but it was uneven. A small circle prospered. Political loyalty often mattered more than merit. For many young Bangladeshis, opportunity felt gated, not absent, but inaccessible.
There is no doubt Bangladesh achieved significant economic growth and reduction in poverty under Sheikh Hasina, but that came with a price which the people were ultimately not willing to pay. Because while the economy was growing, so was corruption, particularly in the public sector. And Hasina allowed her cronies in the private sector to siphon off hundreds of millions of dollars out of the country's banking system. At the same time, the government became increasingly authoritarian. They rigged 3 elections on the trot, they suppressed freedom of the press, they violated human rights with impunity, and they unleashed a massive level of repression against their political rivals. So by 2024, the people's anger against Sheikh Hasina's misrule had reached a boiling point.
For years, dissent had learned to whisper. Protests were contained early. Criticism carried consequences. By 2024, frustration had nowhere left to go. The tiger was gasping. Graduate unemployment was rising. For many, government jobs were not symbols of prestige. They were the only path of survival. A steady salary, job security, a future. When a court ruling reinstated quotas in government hiring, frustration quickly surfaced. It wasn't just a policy change, it was opportunity shrinking, a ceiling crashing. When the word Razakar was thrown at the protesters, it collided with years of accumulated economic frustration. Hospital wards filled to capacity. Deaths were confirmed. For many, fear gave way to resolve. What collapsed was not just a government. Today, an interim administration has taken charge. Its mission to restore order, investigate violence, and pave the way for national elections. The uprising did not decide Bangladesh's future. It cleared the stage.
There's been a course correction. Bangladesh Army played the role of an honest broker. Previously, it was the handmaiden of Hasina. The Bangladesh judiciary played the role of an honest broker. They refused to take sides. And now the Bangladesh Election Commission also. So I think that the institutions have, emerged or risen like a phoenix, because they were totally, under pressured and clobbered under the despotism of Hasina's Awami League.
For the first time in years, possibility hangs in the air. Whether Bangladesh can turn this moment of rejuvenation into enduring change will define the next chapter of its story.